In the previous chapter, Lucian learns that his imitation of the Lionheart sword has revealed terrifying potential. After recovering from the battle, he learns how his actions helped end the war. Edwin then warns him that political enemies will soon target him, urging Lucian to grow stronger and face future crises alone. With that, the Bornholm arc comes to an end. After the battle, the Dark Mage's entire territory had been reduced to ruins. Amid the destruction, a hand suddenly emerged from beneath the rubble. It belonged to the Dark Mage himself. His body was trembling and brutally injured, yet he was completely shocked to realize that he was still alive. Despite having his limbs torn off without a trace, he had somehow survived. He realized that it might have been because of the magic stone, which had been condensed from countless lives. He could feel that an immense amount of mana had been lost. However, he had managed to regenerate his body by pushing the regenerative power of high-grade demonic beasts to its absolute limit. This made him certain that his path had never been wrong. He had not been defeated. With a sinister grin, the Dark Mage felt grateful to Lucian Valdec. Lucian had shown him a path that could only be revealed at death's door. The Dark Mage then vowed to return when Lucian was drowning in happiness and tear everything he had to shreds. He even told Lucian to look forward to that moment. Just then, the green-haired mage appeared from behind. He explained that the contract had not dissolved, so he had been keeping an eye on things just in case. He was shocked that the Dark Mage had actually survived. He remarked that there was a limit to being stubborn, and admitted that this situation was now a problem. He also complained that the Dark Mage could have at least finished the job neatly. The green-haired mage revealed that he had even gone out of his way to tamper with the magic tower, so that the old geezer would not notice anything. Hearing this, the Dark Mage turned toward him with a furious death glare. He coldly realized that the green-haired mage had been responsible for it all along. Betraying him had already been unforgivable. Yet the mage had dared to show himself before him again. The Dark Mage wanted to tear him limb from limb and throw the pieces into an experimental solution until he begged for death. However, the green-haired mage was lucky. For the moment, the Dark Mage had decided to use him as a potion to aid his recovery. The green-haired mage calmly acknowledged that the Dark Mage could do whatever he pleased, if that was truly what he wanted. However, there was one major condition. He could only do that if the Dark Mage were still in his usual condition, with his full strength and power intact. In his current weakened state, things were completely different. The green-haired mage then decided that it was time to return the order to its original owner. Without wasting another moment, he released a tremendous amount of mana and directed it straight toward the Dark Mage. A powerful attack erupted from his hands and struck the already battered Dark Mage. The Dark Mage immediately realized what was happening. His expression changed as he finally understood that the green-haired mage had no intention of letting him recover. He feared that the man was actually planning to finish him off right there. Before the Dark Mage could do anything, the green-haired mage casually bid farewell to his customer. He then unleashed his flames upon the Dark Mage. The intense flames engulfed his entire body and burned him without giving him any chance to escape. Within moments, the Dark Mage's already damaged body was completely consumed by the flames. His body was reduced to nothing but a pile of ashes. As the wind swept through the destroyed territory, those ashes were scattered into the air and carried away with the breeze. With the Dark Mage finally gone, the green-haired mage realized that the contract had been completely dissolved. That meant everything was finally over. However, the experience had taught him an important lesson. He concluded that he would have to be much more careful next time. He had no desire to become involved in something this troublesome again. For the time being, he decided that the best choice would be to keep a low profile and lie low for a while. He then began thinking about where he could go next. After considering his options, one particular place came to mind. It was the place that had been causing a massive stir lately. The green-haired mage became interested in heading there, believing that it might be the perfect place to stay hidden for the time being. The green-haired mage considered his next destination and decided that Krefeld might be worth visiting. 1 month later, the scene shifted to a forest where Lucian had gone hunting with his father, the Duke. The two rode their horses through the forest while searching for suitable prey. After a while, Lucian spotted a deer nearby. He carefully focused on the animal and raised his bow. He aimed the arrow directly at the deer before releasing it. However, his shot missed. The deer immediately noticed the danger and fled deeper into the forest. Lucian gave an embarrassed smile and remarked that, for some reason, the prey seemed unusually nimble that day. He also admitted that missing the shot was a little embarrassing, since it was his first hunt with his father. The Duke calmly observed Lucian and explained that although the scent of blood might have faded from him, The bloodlust and emotions of the battlefield were still lingering within him. Those feelings were not something that could disappear easily. Lucian lowered his gaze and looked at his palm as he silently reflected on his father's words. The Duke then looked at him with a cold expression. He acknowledged that Lucian's judgment at Bornholm had not been wrong. If Lucian had not acted as he did, a great deal of blood would have been spilled across that land. The Duke then questioned why Lucian seemed so surprised by his words. He made it clear that he was not so narrow-minded that he could not acknowledge his own child's judgment. Lucian immediately understood his father's point and admitted that this was not what he had meant. He explained that he was only concerned about what could have happened if things had gone wrong. Not only would relations between the imperial family and House Valdec have suffered, but Lucian also believed that His Grace, the Archduke, might have suffered greatly at the hands of His Majesty the Emperor. Lucian admitted that such an outcome would have made him feel ashamed. Hearing this, the Duke showed a slight, almost unnoticeable smile. He then urged his horse forward and continued riding through the forest. The Duke acknowledged that Lucian at least understood the situation. He explained that if everything had gone according to Tristan's plan, the disastrous situation Lucian had imagined would not have occurred. However, when considering the future of the Empire and House Valdec, that path could not be called the right answer either. A nation that abandons its own people had already sealed its fate. The Duke then reminded Lucian that his original order had simply been to clear away the dark clouds hanging over Bornholm. Yet Lucian had carried out that order far beyond his expectations. The consequences that followed from Lucian's actions were ultimately the responsibility of the head of the family. They were also a burden that the Duke had to bear as Lucian's father. Through this experience, Lucian had learned something important about the Empire. The Empire merely pretended to be at peace, while the Age of Chaos had already begun. What was approaching was not simply another war. It was a choice that would determine who survived and who ultimately fell. The Duke explained that anyone standing alone among a pack of wolves needed to possess their own claws and fangs. Lucian could not allow himself to be deceived by the smooth words of a serpent. Instead, he needed to learn to see farther and understand the world with the sharp vision of a hawk. That was precisely why the Duke intended to push all of his children even harder from that point onward. His purpose was to ensure that House Valdec remained protected. More importantly, he wanted his children to become strong enough to protect themselves through their own power. Therefore, the Duke gave Lucian a new responsibility. From that moment onward, Lucian would have to build his own faction within House Valdec. Lucian was stunned by his father's explanation. He understood that it was nothing unusual for successor candidates within House Valdec to build their own factions. It was an old and familiar practice. Without a faction to support oneself, accomplishing anything within the family was nearly impossible. After all, power was both capability and the heart of competition. However, this system only existed because the family head, the master of the house, chose to overlook it. Lucian's father immediately clarified that Lucian should not misunderstand his intentions. His decision did not mean that he had chosen Lucian as his successor. A stable succession was also part of the family head's duty. He simply could not bear to see bloodshed occur because his children lacked the strength to protect what belonged to them. That was all. He also warned Lucian to abandon any thought of relying on him. A place at his side would only hold meaning if Lucian earned it entirely through his own strength. Lucian forcefully chuckled and accepted his father's words. His father then moved on to the final matter and commended Lucian for his service at Bornholm. He explained that being part of the Black Lion was not a lifelong shackle. Once members came of age, they were allowed to retire. If they earned enough merit, they could even transfer their affiliation elsewhere. The process was simply kept secretive, which was why such cases were rarely seen. The Duke then revealed that Raymon was expected to leave the Black Lion soon. He did not know where Raymon intended to go. However, gaining a man of Raymon's caliber required treatment worthy of his abilities. A true ruler did not force people to follow their heir. Instead, they made people choose to follow of their own accord. Therefore, Lucian needed to consider what reason Raymon would have to follow him. Lucian was shocked by this information. To him, it was a reward more valuable than any treasure. Raymon was a fully realized talent who possessed extraordinary skill, experience, battlefield instincts, and everything else a powerful warrior needed. Lucian realized that such a person was exactly what he needed most at that moment. He then considered the bond they had developed through the missions they completed together. However, Lucian knew that their shared experiences were nowhere near enough to make Raymon follow him. He needed something that no warrior could ever refuse, something so extraordinary that once its true value was revealed, Raymon would willingly bow his head and follow him. Lucian quickly realized that there was only one thing that could accomplish that. With his decision made, Lucian dismounted from his horse. He stepped before his father and respectfully bowed. He sincerely thanked his father for giving him this opportunity. Lucian understood that he needed to strike while the iron was hot. Therefore, he requested permission to leave House Valdec for a while. Internally, Lucian was already grinning with excitement. Hearing his son's words, the Duke could not hide his pride and happiness. He smiled proudly as he watched Lucian take his first step toward building his own strength. Meanwhile, Lucian was already thinking about the future. It was time to seriously reinforce their strength, and that plan would not stop with Raymon. Lucian also intended to focus on the development of Real Nectar.